Hey guys, what's up? Media Group here. I'm excited to bring you guys another reaction video we have today. I'm sure we're going to cover a lot of insights, so look forward to diving into those topics with you guys here. Once again, if you guys have any comments or anything that we might have missed that you kind of want to go over again, feel free to leave that in the comments. But we look forward to hearing you guys there. So let's get into this.
Covering the this video that's covering the passages through the book, the Black Bourgeoisie, and we're going to be going through it. What was the most striking thing firsthand for you guys?
For me, I think relatively the sport aspect, and the material aspect. That's very rampant in my family. I mean, everyone's obsessed with sports. They rather care about sports than whatever is going on to their day to day. I think they even mentioned it almost if there's a surgeon, he cares more about what the Yankees are going to score than, if his surgery was a success. And I know I put on that front too, in society, right? At least I know about sports. So I'll just talk about sports. I won't really talk about things of the matter, right when I'm in public. So definitely that for sure.
No, yeah. And just to kind of piggyback off what Xavier said, just understanding how ingrained in how that was a tactic, I guess from the beginning to kind of keep us in this marginalized mentality was something that, on an everyday, we don't really think about as much. People might know it intuitively that, people from Black ancestry are typically, fixated on sports and whatnot, but to know that there was kind of an agenda behind it, and there are people pushing that narrative in an effort to kind of keep us in that kind of mentality was, pretty shocking to see and have him dive a little deeper into.
And what about you, Cory? And also on top of that, Cory, I want to know, what do you think the blowback that this guy had in the 50s? This is a Black professor who came up with this observation. What do you think the blowback was from that?
So yeah, I think with the example of sports being something that people get very involved with is it's definitely a big strong thing in the Black community, but I feel like this kind of goes throughout every community, and if it's not sports, it's movies, video games, TV shows, just all whatever. But I can definitely say that obviously it's promoted a lot to the Black community. Your question on the blowback the professor got, I mean, I feel like it'd be the same thing, same blowback he would get if he was speaking now. I feel like there'd be a crazy amount of blowback saying, that all we care about is basketball and football and whatnot. I feel like you get a big amount of blowback because, I mean, at the end of the day, this is something very important. We as a community own this. This is our thing. And I mean, we were just looking at the video of Barack Obama and Kamala, shaking hands with the NBA. Kamala's just with the USA team, and it's pretty front and center why she's doing that. She's trying to, cater to the Black community. Same reason why she just had Megan the Stallion on one of her things or whatever. It's yeah.
Oh, yeah, and I think that's a really good point there. And just kind of go off that, I think another argument that people would have would just be well, being that a lot of Black people in these impoverished communities don't have a lot of infrastructure to maybe get them the right education or what have you, we have to look to sports as our only means out. And I think that just kind of contributes to the cyclical thinking that is, prioritizing sports within that community. And there is some truth there. I think infrastructure is a big part of being able to, get those higher level professions and whatnot. But at the end of the day, it does come, from that mentality. You have to be thinking about, these things you want to get into. That has to proceed first before the infrastructure and, all that stuff.
Yeah, and then I just wanted to add on to that. I think that just overall, this whole video in general, I think that is just working areas that the Black community just needs to be observant of and just be cognizant of when they are participating in it. And I totally agree, Corey. Nowadays, it could be comic books, it could be right anime, it
Right.
could be a whole different loads of different things. I do want to say this because it was something that I really wanted to work on in 2021. And, I had a lot of crazy stuff going on in 2021, but I wanted to work on for what's out is talk about how a lot of the psychological weapons, a lot of the messaging, the brainwashing is primarily done to the Black community first, and then it's going on to the public, right? So I always believe that, right? Like people in 2021, I was saying, exactly what, at one point in 2022, I guess, Corey, right? Tristan Tate or Al or whatever the name was, Tate was saying, right?
Yeah.
First, they try to cancel you. Then they try to lock you up. And if they can't do that, then they try to kill you. That whole idea, that was Malcolm X, right? That was Martin Luther King. That was so many of the leaders of the Black Panther Party, same ordeal. Dude died. The dude was only 25 or something like that, right? Judas and the Black Messiah, right? So many of those weapons. So being enamored with sports has moved on to every community so that we're not focused on any issues. Most people don't even know the real issues. They're focused on all the other material things that there is just easy to message to them, and you can get the job done pretty easy. So yeah, I think we always talk about in the military, my dad told me, they're always 50 to 60 years in advance of like when it comes to technology. I
Hmm.
think that was always a strategy with the Black community. You always test something out first for our community, see how we react, and then just move on and do it to the exact same community. I mean, and look, I don't want to go too crazy right now, but let's think about it right here, man. They try to feminize our men, right? A big thing that was part of this video actually was talking about how the man couldn't really be a man and they were really being bossed by the ladies, and the ladies were the enforcers within the Black community.
Yeah.
Now that's exactly happening in the rest of the world, and it took some years, right, for that to happen, but it's apparent, right? So pretty interesting.
Yep.
Yeah, and then so these topics on what the community's focused on and what they put all their energy to kind of plays into like how over the course of if you want to focus on slavery over the course of segregation, Jim Crow, Black community is so indoctrinated on the fact that they are lesser, right? And they can only achieve in this one area, right? Um, as we know, everyone can, well, you, people can branch out in a variety of ways and be successful in a variety of ways. It doesn't, not every person of this race is going to be smarter than everyone of this race. Not everyone's going to be more athletic than this race, blah, blah, blah. You can make your stereotypes, but at the end of the day, it comes down to the individual and what they do to push themselves to get where they want to be. So again, like this idea of like, I want to be the next Michael Jordan, I want to be the next LeBron James. That's like, it just shows like who our heroes are. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with having them be your heroes, but it's also just good to notice who our heroes are, and then you look to other Americans and who their heroes are.
Yeah, I agree.
Interesting point there. Interesting point there. Devon, were you gonna say something?
No.
I was gonna say, man, I see it, man. Corey, we know this as coaches, man. We don't really care about what you can do at the moment, right? The sport that we coach in, right? It's really there to make the person, right? And it doesn't matter if it's a girl, if it doesn't matter if it's a boy. Um, and when you see someone take pride and know that they're better than what peers may have said or what they may think in their own head. And I think that happens in the Black community a lot. We trip ourselves up because we're so enamored and just feeling lesser than, right? When you see someone empowered, they cook, and you're like, you could only help but just feel excited, and you want everybody else to feel it, right?
Yeah.
But you're still gonna have people who are, gonna be negative. We've had athletes that are negative just in general. We've all had teammates that are just, all right, they're gonna be in that little hump. But I think for so long, the negative has far out, rung the just powerful moments. It's so interesting that you bring up that point of like, look at the heroes that we put up. We put up Bron. And that's why I was actually talking with some of my friends, and they always joke around with it. But the reason I've been taken off of Bron the way I was, it just felt like in my soul, it was like idolization. And I was like, I don't want to, like, this dude plays basketball. Can we keep it a beam?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm so sorry. And there's so many people in Cleveland who were still like the same thing that I used to do. I post an Olympic photo. I post this. Every post, we know this in our clique alone. Every post he puts up is, you're going to repost it, right? But we're not talking about heroes, like real Black heroes that like really fought for something, and not the basic
not to
one.
interject, but like if you ask like someone who are like, the Black figures, and I'm gonna say like this is the same thing. I mean, who's the Black figures in the civil rights? You'll get three names, right? You'll get Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, Rosa Parks, right? Like, I'm not gonna lie. I mean, yeah, I can't name many more than that, but yeah, go on, Xavier.
Yeah, no, but I'm saying even beyond that, right? One of the other things I wanted to do in 2021, we might have to go back to it. People don't realize where Black people were the most powerful was right after the Civil War and Reconstruction. And it wasn't until the KKK was established that changed up the whole thing. We had Black senators. We had Black senators for a state in 1870. And then all that got jammed, right?
Mm-hmm.
And guess who wanted to stop Black men from voting? Can we guess? I don't want to go there right now. But do you want to guess who it was? It was the KKK and the DNC, sadly.
Yeah.
It's the truth.
No, yeah.
And then but think about that. In 1870, we had our first Black senator. He was a Republican. The Democrats did not have their first Black senator, until 1993. That says numbers.
And I think that just goes to show like how much power that we have as a race. And I think the fact that a lot of people within our race don't like acknowledge that and feel that they have to like outsource that into like sports is just, another tactic that the enemy, for like lack of better terminology, like uses in this case. Because, 1870s, like you said, people are progressing right after the civil rights movement, and in a short time frame, people are like, oh, like, are doing all this, like, no, we can't have that, because then that puts us like in jeopardy of like losing our power. And then we get this implicit tactics to kind of, knock our conscience down over like the years. And then, they were successful in it, as unfortunate as it is to say, but I think the extent to which they went to implement those things just goes to show how much power. And if we as a race can like acknowledge that like fully and not place it in, these idols within like sports culture, and like, don't get me wrong, it's nothing wrong to like sports, but like you said, kind of like put them on like this higher godly like pedestal, and that just deters us from like pursuing other interests that can like actually advance us like as a race.
And again, this goes.
Oh, one thing I was gonna say, Cory, was imagine that 1870, if we would have kept that progress from 1870, the first Black senator. Do you know how crazy evolved America would have been in this whole race issue?
Mm-hmm.
But then it had to be controlled so that it can cause this friction. It could cause this mayhem. Imagine where we could be right now if there was just more evolution from there, from 1870 on. And we talk about Tulsa Black Wall Street.
Mm-hmm.
That happened in 1912, around there. It could have been something so different, but it's been so diverted. But sorry, Cory.
No, you good. I was just gonna make a small comment on, the heroes that we build up, and look through. It's not just sports. We got celebrities, actors, and all that. And you can just think about how big a deal like Black Panther was. It's like fun movie, but what was that movie doing for the community / culture besides being a good movie? But that was like a thing that we put up, and people were feeling white guilt not watching it type stuff.
Yeah, this is crazy. It's just crazy.
I'm not gonna lie, y'all. When I was a brainwashed little college kid, oh my god, for the culture.
No,
Oh,
but I
that's
think
great.
that's like a super
But that's
good
facts.
point that like I didn't even kind of like acknowledge until you said that. Just kind of sprinkled into what we were kind of like talking about before, how they just like put these little, I guess, like Easter eggs, for like a lack of a better term, just to kind of keep us happy and make it think like we're making some kind of process. But like you said, we had like a black movie, like you said, good movie, did good, had a bunch of black actors in it that,
Check us out, D.
yeah.
They remade Lion King with some black people, and we got so hyped.
No, yeah, like bro, it's crazy how like easy it is to
They made a
switch
quick
to
bill.
equality. It's like, bro, just make Mufasa a dark haired lion, nigga, and we're straight. which is crazy, and it just goes to show how much work still needs to be done just on like a entire mental paradigm shift for like our race, so we can like actually start getting some progress. Because we can have like these little conversations right now, but if we're not in like positions to really like influence how infrastructure can like change the trajectory over something, like nothing's gonna happen. And they understand that, and I think they know that. Sure, we can get people talking like a little bit, but as long as we can keep giving them like these little gifts like that, it's never gonna amount to like anything crazy, which is something as a race we gotta be better at.
Before we go to the video, Corey, we watched a video separately prior to this. Don't want to do too much on it, but I think that it relates a bit to it. And I want to get you guys' initial thoughts and just general overview for the public. We watched a video on the Black Boule. I want to give credit. I'll give credit in the description to that video if you guys would like to take a look at it. You guys could pause the podcast here and then watch it. And you want to come back, do what you want to do. But Corey and then Davon.
Yeah, so I'm just gonna go ahead and start with like kind of like the big picture of where racism / recovering from the 60s and beyond and all that. Like it's a different beast every couple years. It's the racism we deal with now is not the same racism we dealt with decades ago. But at the same time, like was mentioned in this video, is that a lot of Black individuals are keeping it alive, and this is through individualized racism, or rather internalized racism, and believing through generational trauma, or they just feel inferior. And like I just think of it as in levels of where we started slavery. Imagine just being not knowing anything else other than myself and everyone who looks like me is the white man's servant, right? And then all of a sudden you're free, and now you're able to do whatever the white man has done in the past, but you have no experience with it. You legitimately think that this is like buying property, running business or whatever. All these options just seem completely out of your league because, of course, you've been nowhere around it. So I just think of it as, once a Black man gets that status and is able to, be like Django and ride on the horse or whatever, like it's jarring to be able to achieve certain tasks if you're constantly thinking like, this is not for me, this is the white man's, this is the white man's job. Only a white man can own this much property.
You got African American men or women who are kind of like navigating like their career paths like pretty well, and have established some sort of like status to them. This kind of lack of, I guess, like a role model or like how to operate within like this new realm of status. You're doing better financially. You're around like more successful people like this, that, and the third. When you don't have, or let's say when you come from a family or an area where you don't have like a lot of that, you're kind of like in uncharted territory, like he was saying. So not like the mindset thing where he was like kind of talking about, but I feel like because of that, it can be easy to be in situations that don't necessarily have your best interest in like you not even being aware of it until like it's too late kind of deal. So like you said, they get into this, I don't know what's really going on. I'm looking at like these older like white people for, guidance kind of deal. You just don't like have that within like your own community to do that. So you put your faith in people to help you do that since you don't have it. And then, years down the line, you're like, oh snap, I've been pushing like their agenda. I've been doing this and kind of losing sight of, what's really here and like what they really been like taking from me. So I think that's like an interesting aspect that he talked about in the video and how diligent we need to be, especially at, not saying that people who don't have like, high finances or anything like that don't need to be cognizant of this, but people who are like accumulating that wealth and increasing their status, the pool in which you can like trust people is going to get smaller. And for that reason, you got to be like a little bit more attentive to, the people you're interacting with. And this could even be like Black people, like he talked about a little bit. As you get higher into those networks, you're going to be some people within there who are just, pushing the white man's agenda, for lack of better terminology. And you got to be able to, weed those people out too.
I mean, I don't want to be too frank. The best way I can describe it is the house slave, right?
Yeah.
You benefit at the house, but you exploit the rest of your people just for gain, right? For whether it be political gain, whether it be wealth, whether it be prominency. I was just digging around in my like years of work, and I did a whole biography and made a whole like pamphlet. Not even more than a pamphlet. It was a huge notebook on this architect, because I love architecture. Julian Abel, his dad was one of the founding members of the Boule. And I think growing up, I was, his dad was a doctor, but I didn't understand the social strength that his dad really had. They established their own skull and bones, essentially, their own, right? You want to call it Illuminati, you want to call it whatever you want to, right? They had already had, right, they mentioned it within one of the churches, one of the Freemason leagues and whatever you call it, leagues, or one of the Freemasons in Ireland or Scotland or whatever gave them their rights. You kind of know what you're serving when you get up to that 32nd degree, that 33rd degree. You know what you're serving. So for sure, Shaq is a 33rd degree, right? So, right, like, what you get yourself into. The Boule is just benefiting, right? They're gatekeepers. They're the ones that own all the big Black, media. They own all the big, whatever you think that, like, you love. LeBron has a huge Boule chest on his or a tattoo on his chest.
No, really.
Right in daylight. You just got to pay attention. Shaq is a member of the Boule. So many people that we know today are members of the Boule. So when we think that they have our best interests in mind, know that their interests are not the same as as the people. Sometimes they might switch up, but a lot of times, especially in the Boule nowadays, you're Kanye, right? You turn into Kanye. No cap. I know that sounds so crazy, and no disrespect to Kanye either, or yay. But that's what you end up turning into, right? He's Boule, right? Like, so many of these members, and the Boule is getting exposed in the biggest way, because it's exposing this relationship with the church, this relationship. I mean, all I have to say is P. Diddy, right? P. Diddy connects all of the politicians that you can think of, every politician that you can think of, every politician you can think of, along with, right, you know, him doing what he did,
Yeah.
him doing what he doing, and he blackmailed everybody, all the Boule. So, and these are the people that we put out, that we idolize. These are the people, the exact people that we were just talking about earlier, that like we look up to, LeBrons, the Kobe's, all this. And they don't got our best interest. We would love for them to have our best interest, but we rather, you know, let them do their thing. Like what they do is raw. Like
Mhm.
from a backseat perspective, I still think LeBron's amazing. If you look at his story, man, you know,
He's
part
confident.
of it is because he's from our area too.
Yeah.
But you know what I'm saying? It's what the truth is he's a basketball player. He's, you know, backed by billion-dollar companies, backed by billionaires. It's just the truth, right? Like he's not
Yeah.
going to be speaking on your interest. You know, we talk about the whole China ordeal, right? With, you know, what, you know, mishaps they're doing in the world, but yet they have a huge percentage of Nike, or they're a huge customer for Nike. So you can't talk bad about them. This is what we're in, right? So we look at a few days ago, right? Who's actually mentioned in this Boule documentary that we watched later on. And I think he's such a corny ass dude, but he's funny. Roland Martin put together a Black Men for Kamala, and apparently they raised $7 million, and Black men stayed on the call for 3 hours. Now, I'm going to be honest with you guys. Prior to this, I was trying to sign up for a Kamala for Hispanic Men for Kamala. The event started at 7:30. I tried to enter at 8:15 and it had already ended. So I think these Zooms are money laundering, in all honesty, right? Like, I don't believe millions of black men. They said like 100,000 black men came on Zoom, and they said they had to call Zoom to add more men to it.
I was about to say, their servers are not even handling all that, bro.
But we look at the interviews, and this goes back to the Black Boule. And there's no disrespect to any people who are in sororities or fraternities. You do your own thing, and it's the same thing with Freemasonry, right? Some people really believe in Freemasonry and think it's beneficial. It's not until you get to those top levels you see who you're really serving. You're not really serving God. I just got to say that for the Freemasons in the building. But some people are not on that. But there are so many people who are going to vote for Kamala Harris only because she's a AKA.
Mm-hmm.
No cap.
And I want to like speak on that a little bit as someone who's had like some fraternity experience. You know, got into it. There is just kind of like, hey, like we think you're good for us, you know, and then you know they do like their whole spiel to kind of get you into it. So from the get go, it's like this very transactional experience. And like I was young, so you know, I was still finding myself. I'm like, you know what, this is cool, like blah blah blah. And like that's not to say that you don't meet cool people within you know, your fraternity or sorority or what have you. Like the video we were kind of referencing earlier, he said like just because you're part of these things doesn't necessarily mean you're, you know, really embodying what their origins like come from. But I say all that to say that a lot of people I feel like are in my position who maybe like want to meet new friends, or you want to be around like a group of people, and like you get into these things and you don't realize how, I guess, like ritualistic they really are. And even the people who are in them, they might not understand the extent that, you know, they're contributing to like this kind of ideology as well. But my experience, like, you know, go through your pledge class and like whatnot, go through like Hell Week. And then there's like an initiation period where I'm not going to hold you, like they were robed up. There's candles. They had like, you know, this book that they're reading from and like everything. And like, you just think it's like, or like, you know, whatever, like this is like their little tradition, not thinking like anything of it. But, you know, in hindsight, you're like am I like, what am I like? What is he saying? What am I agreeing? Like, what does all this mean? Like, you don't really like take that in full context. Now that like I'm out of it, so many years later, you kind of think about like the little things like that, and you're just kind of like, wait a minute, like what is going on here? And like just to kind of reiterate, like the people who are doing it might not even be like completely aware of like the things they're doing. They're just like, no, this was tradition, so you know this is like a part of the initiation and like things that you got to go through. But all that to say that at the end of the day, you don't really like be cognizant of what you're like really getting into, because there's like a lot of things that can go on that you don't pay too much attention to, and then you find yourself doing things that you don't want to do, or engaging in behaviors that like aren't conducive to you. And when I joined the fraternity, there was like a lot of drinking and like a lot of other that stuff, and just like a lot of external forces that prompted me to be in behaviors that I'm not the most proud of, just with like the overindulgence and like alcohol and things like that. And it's like, be a little bit more cognizant of that, like going in. And I think a lot of people don't have like that kind of mindset before they get into it, which can lead to worse problems there. So that would be like my little thing on that.
Yeah, I was gonna say this, man. It's gonna get really deep here, and then we'll get to this video. Corey, you can add whatever else you need to as well. Think about this, and this is the way that I think about it. We talk a lot about, right? Not we, but people in the media talk a lot about the deep state. And Vivek probably made the best description of it. He called it the admin state. It's basically bureaucrats who are within the government who aren't elected but are legitimately using their departments, using their specialty to help other agendas that might go against, right, whatever the president or whatever Congress wants to do. And they are part of the reason that they're keeping everything tied up. So think about that admin state, right? That they're not elected, but it's a lot of them. It's thousands of them, tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands. Well, think about this. I consider most fraternities, sororities to be watered down versions of Freemasonry and the Northeastern Star or whatever like that. Whatever you want to call it. I forgot what the women's version of it with the Eastern Star or whatever is basically like a pentagram, right? For the women. I think that all fraternities and sororities are watered down versions of them, and they create their own deep state of these people that are kind of just cogs within the machine. They love being, in it.
This organization, yeah.
Right. Yeah. They love being in this organization. They all have some type of wealth to go into it. And then they just help each other out. And then they don't care about what else is going on in any other, like you're so secluded in there. You only care about getting your frat bro up. You only care about that. Some firms, right, only hire from a certain fraternity.
Yeah, and like going on top of that, like the whole nature of like the pledge process is to just be confined like in this area, or not like in this one area, like not in a basement or like anything, but just like to be with them at all times, go through stuff just to kind of like build this, manufactured solidarity to just kind of have this fake, I guess, like bond, like per se, to kind of like keep you going into the machine that is like, hey, it's us against the world, it's brotherly love, like all this. They really like preach on that. And like I said, if you're not cognizant about it, you can fall in that pretty quickly. And you see that with the dudes who are like super into their frat. Like I can say that I wasn't like, well, you're not a part of this and blah blah blah, but you see dudes who like do that and will like really like fight you or do whatever just for the sake of like their fraternity's image. So it's pretty crazy.
Yeah, so they turn into the admin, the admin society of the United States, and a lot of times they get that upper middle class to like high end life, usually, right? Yeah. So they keep the people within there in that area, and you can chill, right? Like inflation it might affect you. Don't get me wrong, I'm not in everybody's pocket, but you could be chilling, right? Like you could be, oh yeah. So think about that. If I was an elite, I'd be like, yeah, I would love these watered down fraternities. Make it like on some like college football type stuff. Like you're gonna be hype about your fraternity. You're gonna defend your fraternity to anybody. Oh, I'm a black fraternity. Well, I am a classic Greek fraternity. Like, you know what I'm saying? You got all these different things, and you gotta be like buddy. Like the reason why I'll never work in a frat is I get too annoyed, and I keep it real after I get too annoyed. I couldn't be chilling with no homeboy. You know what I'm saying? Like,
I get the sentiment.
So I love scamming frat boys. I gotta say that. In college, I scammed a lot of frat boys. No Diddy. Pause.
Yeah, you're good shit.
Okay, Corey, you got anything? And then we could get this video started.
Let's get this video started.
Oh yeah.
you know, at the beginning of like that frat week when they recruit everybody and
Mhm.
they give everybody, you know, oh yeah, I'll give you a discount on the party, man. Just Venmo me 5, blah blah blah. Go on that bitch.
I mean, like literally, what is it? Not initiation week, but it's like a week where you literally just like go to like a bunch of like the fraternities, whatnot that you're thinking about, and like their whole thing is just like make it seem like how they cool they are. So like they'll have food there, you know, you meet all the guys, you have like games and stuff, and then
That's
like
the hook.
yeah, after the first 3 days, there's like a next level to like, you know, what's been going on throughout the week. So like, hey, dude, like we really mess with you. You get like an invite to go to, you know, like maybe a party at the house or like they're having like more food and whatnot, but it's a little bit more exclusive because you've been selected. And then from there, like there's an increased selection process. Like, all right, dude, we're messing with you like this much. Like, come bid a week, we're about to give you a bid, bro. And like, you know, they just build up this hype and like this just like solidarity from the get go. And like it's crazy. Like I'm just thinking about in hindsight, like all like these little things. It's really just like get you to conform to like them. They really want to build that like, hey, it's us and like us against the world kind of like mentality and like the whole process of joining a fraternity. Like
Yeah, that's a good point of like the step-by-step process as they slowly reel you in, you know. First it's like, oh yeah, free food, like, oh yeah, like come on, like we're all cool guys, we all hang out, we all party, this, that, the other. And then it's like, oh, but we're selecting you, like you select few, like out of you guys, maybe like we'll see who survives our hazing or whatever the fuck. And then they go, it's on the next level before you know it, you're initiating the next people, you know.
no,
It's
yeah.
just
And like that is
like a
so
cult.
ingrained into the process of like what it is to be a fraternity. So yeah, dude, it's yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy.
Mhm.
I think I was blessed, man. My freshman year of college, my crew captain was also the president of Pike, so I kind of got to like go through the. We used to go to all of the rule was all the growers were allowed to go to the Pike things, and you couldn't bully them. You couldn't try no bullshit. They would try it, and they'd be like, "Go talk to Travis," and they'd be
Yeah.
like, "Well, we're gonna gather around and get together," and you'd be like, "Oh, you can't do shit, can you?" Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess I had a blessing on that end, but for the most part, I mean, we had this discussion prior to going to college. I was never going to join a fraternity. I had family members who begged me to go join a black fraternity.
Mhm.
There's a black fraternity that ended up coming to Jacksonville at one point. I was considering it, but no, like I enjoy Max Scholars. I do consider that in some way a fraternity.
Mhm.
But you know, it's no initiation. It's no,
No, yeah.
right. It's more about like, helping that other person because you want to, right? Like you are actually sacrificing your time to go help,
Mhm.
right? And like a lot of times, and fraternities do that too, man. They give a lot to the community. But I just want it to be known as, this is a system of control as well. That's basically all I want to do. So I don't want any war with anybody who's in the fraternity or sorority. Comment down below.
You wouldn't understand, brother.
Yeah. You just wouldn't understand. Oh,
Wouldn't, brother.
I really want to tell us one story, but I'm not gonna tell it on here. So
Right.
I'll tell it. I'll tell it to y'all separately. But man, yeah, frats be on their own things for real.
They do. They do. Yeah, my experience was definitely interesting to say the least. And I don't want to like shit on anyone who was in the fraternity I was in because there were like a lot of good people, but just to kind of go over like we were talking about, like, you know, there's like finances and stuff that you like got to go into and like whatnot. And there's like certain metrics that I was just like, well, like not trying to like do all that. And like there was just like this profound pressure to be like, well, you know, it's required that you got to like, you know, live here for a certain amount of time. If you're not going to do that, you got to pay X amount of money, like blah, blah, blah. And then as I expressed my apprehension, just how like they went about things and like how I wasn't like going to do that, like not doing, paying X amount of money to live in a house for X amount of people or doing X amount of things, like not good for my well-being. Like it was crazy how quick all that brotherly love goes out the window, brother. And I literally like, got dropped from my fraternity because I didn't want to pay like the certain amount of money that I had to by like a certain time frame. And it was just like that. And I think that goes to show just how, once again, like transactional these things can be. And this isn't to paint every fraternity in a bad light, but I think it just highlights a good point of how like this institution operates. Like everything's fun and games as long as you're adhering to like what we usually want people to adhere to, and you're kind of like being that cog in the system. You're not giving us any, hiccups. You're willing to, do what you need to do, like blah, blah, blah. And then the second that there is some backlash, you start getting that resistance. So, yeah, I think that was just like an interesting insight after, being in there for a little bit.
Thank you for that, brother. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, Cory, let's give this guy some credit. Will you give the creator some credit, and then you can share the screen? We got to give our boy Brooklyn Saint Mickell some credit, man. Came across his YouTube channel about 2 or 3 weeks ago, man. He puts out some solid content. So yeah, we'll start with the intro. And then yeah, I mean, honestly, I want to touch all these parts, right? Status, sports, self-hate, submissive men. If you guys want to, stop at any point, just speak up. But Cory, we're going 3-minute increments, and we'll skip through. Actually, we'll get through. We want to actually encourage the viewers here to go watch it yourself, right? Get the full context to it. But today we are reacting to this.
First read about the 1950s Black American middle class, I was surprised, and you'll see why as we go over the account. Now, more importantly, this history matters because it shows exactly how, if people keep thinking and believing the same, they'll continue acting the same and producing children who repeat the same patterns, right? And so as we go over this 1950s Black American culture, we're going to read from this book right here, Black Bourgeoisie, written by sociologist Dr. E. Franklin Frazier. So let's go in here and let's turn to page 204, where it says this. The exclusion of the middle-class Negroes from participation in general life of the American community has affected their entire outlook on life. Now, what exclusion is he talking about? He's talking about not being accepted by whites, which he describes as one of the primary aims of this black middle-class group. And wanting to be accepted socially by whites, it has its roots in this inferiority complex that was developed during slavery. So let's continue. It has meant that whites did not take Negroes seriously, that whites did not regard the activities of Negroes as of any real consequence in American life. It has tended to encourage a spirit of irresponsibility or an attitude of play or make-believe among them. And in this book, Dr. Frazier talks about this group exaggerating their wealth to make it seem like they were doing financially better than what they were actually doing. And that their business, their profession, and their education was not something that they took actually seriously, right? This was part of that make-believe world that they had created. Now let's go over to page 207 and let's talk about this play attitude. As a consequence of the prestige of society, many Negro professional men and women take more seriously their recreation than their professions. Once, the writer heard a Negro doctor who was prominent socially say that he would rather lose a patient than have his favorite baseball team lose a game. This was an extreme expression of the relative value of professional work and recreation among the black bourgeoisie. At the same time, it is indicative of the value which many Negro professional men and women, including college professors, place upon sports. Here we go with the sports. Now remember, this was written in the 1950s, where we're seeing an account where Dr. Frazier is explaining that these professional blacks were already placing a higher value on sports than their actual profession. Let's continue. Except when they are talking within their narrow field of their professions, their conversations are generally limited to sports, baseball, and football. And if he were writing this today, he would have added basketball to this list as well. Let's continue. They follow religiously the scores of the various teams and the achievements of all the players. For hours, they listen to the radio accounts of sports and watch baseball and football games on television. They became learned in the comments of sports writers. And I remember in the Marine Corps, I knew multiple guys who had what it seemed like to know all the stats on multiple players, like in the NFL and in the NBA, right? They could tell you what team they were on, what team won the Super Bowl, who won the NBA championship, what year they won it, which college they went to, what.
So like for me, I think about how we love to like get so enveloped and study sports media and this, that, the other. And you just think about the simple rule of like what you spend your time with is what you're going to know, obviously. So like for me, it's movies and TV shows and video games and all that nerd crap. I wish, there's definitely been times where I just wish I could just take all that knowledge and just throw it out and just replace it with something a little bit more useful than that. Because I look back at, high school, it's like I would like study that stuff. I would study that stuff, and I know all these minute details about like fake worlds, right?
Yeah.
And it's just whatever you spend your time in, you're gonna have knowledge on it. So
Yeah, that's why I want separate of school, man. You know what I used to do? This is like a big nerd. Devon probably could attest to it at some points, bro. If I got a day off of school, I'd act like couldn't go to school, man. I watch a documentary, man. I watch like 3 or 4 of them hoes, have some Pizza Hut or Papa John's or whatever. And just, you know what I'm saying? Like documentaries have always been that thing for me. I just like seeing, perspectives of different people. And, obviously, I mean, I love video games too, don't get me wrong. But that's what I like. That's what I always was looking forward to. And I got a little hate because I didn't follow sports, or I didn't to an extent. I think the most I followed sports was in high school, was in college, and that was, during the Cavs. I was always a big Cavaliers fan, so I was very regional. I still like the Browns. I still watch Cav games, not crazy amount anymore, but mainly watch Brown games. Right? I think there's a form of just pride in where one comes when in terms of that. So but when we talk about the knowledge, I mean, we have friends, you might see this one, right? But we got friends who legitimately we will spend 4 to 5 hours talking about sports. And nowadays we talk about more stuff than that, but I'm saying, like, a lot of times, man, I've been in sessions where Devon and our one friend, man, will go off. And I mean, and yeah, he might be right about some of his statistics, but all of it is opinion. But you know how much time that is taken up. It's funny, but how much time is taken up.
Definitely enwrapped and all that. Like you said, Corey, just being video games, that was like a big part of my life growing up. Even like throughout high school, and whatnot. And like you said, there's like things that you get into that can kind of like increase your knowledge when you look back on and you really see how much time you put into like these different avenues that weren't productive. And I like how you said it, like these fake worlds. You understand how much of that could have been placed in another area that could have been more productive just for like the growth like aspect. And I think that's just like a part of life. No one's perfect, as much as we want to sit here and say in hindsight, we wish we did X, Y, Z. But I think the fact that we can like even acknowledge that is, a great step in that direction. Because you have some people who 30, 40, 50, years old who can't come to a realization that, all the time that they're allotting to, learning about these things is, at the end of the day, irrelevant. Sure, you might be able to have like a profession in it, whether that be like commentating or something like that, but on the scale of making the well-being of our people better, it really doesn't do us any justice.
Yeah, because I mean, when you study that, what pro are you getting out of it? What good stuff are you getting out of it?
Yeah,
it's not much. I mean,
I can move my fingers in perfect patterns.
Right.
Yeah.
So I feel like if that's not your job, I don't know if you should be obsessing over it. But
that man, Corey, man, so me as well, man. We on our Batman, man. One day, we've been training so much on the game that like later on, right, like all that knowledge we have from the Batman game going to transfer when we got money and we in the in the Batmobiles and
right.
fighting crime.
You're planning ahead.
Yeah, y'all don't even know. Y'all don't even know. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You'll be like, how you know all that, man?
Arkham.
Trust. Hey, no, I can't lie. Corey know way more of the Arkham games than I do, man. I love the Arkham games. Like, I'm a big nerd from it, but then man, meeting Cory, man, like knowing Cory, like knowing him that he like a big nerd on that one, man, you'd be like, damn, bro, I ain't even close, man. This dude is cracked. Yeah.
Right, and then that's just hours and hours behind.
Imagine if he did that with Rowan, man.
Right, that's what I'm about to say. That's hours and hours. Like, you know, you crack it, but you're dead ass. You know, hours and hours of just a video game. What, I can press buttons good. You know, it's like, but I could apply that time. If I would apply that time to something else, like it, not even something like crazy productive, like, you know, let's call it basketball. You know, I could be pretty good at basketball.
Yeah.
Or I could be pretty good at a video game.
Yeah, learning figures or something like that.
Hey, y'all are lucky, you guys. We were gonna do a basketball league on top of rowing cast, you know, ultra racing series, but we don't need to do a basketball series yet. I think we've all seen Flight React, right? We all know how Flight React plays. Those of you guys who don't know, look it up. But Cory, he's on that level. We tell you,
Very clouded.
he got height though. He got height. But see, look, you guys, we're feeding in to the middle class. You know what I'm saying?
Part of the problem.
Yeah, we part of the issue. You guys are gonna see. Let's keep playing.
Yeah, first step is awareness.
Stats they had in college, I mean, it seemed like they knew the full thing. Who coached which team, how many years, I mean, the full thing. And at this point, I had already stopped watching sports to any significant degree. So I wasn't up to the latest information, but it was fascinating just how much time and effort that they had spent to accumulate this knowledge, right? Because even when I did watch sports more frequently, I wasn't nearly as knowledgeable as these guys were, right? I played basketball for my high school team, right? And I knew enough to have surface level conversations about what was going on, right? And after high school, I pretty much lost most of my interest in sports. The only thing that I may watch today is a few highlights from boxing or MMA, and that's about it, right? But if you were to ask me today who won the Super Bowl or the NBA championship this year, last year, or the year before, or whenever, I would be absolutely clueless. And if you ask me about which player plays on which team today, I would be just as clueless, right? Because I don't have a desire to stay informed on that subject. It's not important enough for me, right? But it is surprising to see that the Negro has had a long history of prioritizing sports. Let's continue. Often they make long journeys in order to see their favorite teams, white or Negro, play baseball and football games. The prominent role of sports in the serious playing of Negro society stems partly from certain traditions in the Negro community. It reflects to some extent the traditions of the gentlemen who engaged in no serious work. But in addition, preoccupation of Negro society with sports is related to its preoccupation with gambling, especially poker. And this culture is stemming from the old Southern culture where the rednecks were involved in these types of activities as well. The blacks were influenced a lot by these types of people in many different areas of the development of black culture, right? Now, from here, let's go a little bit into their culture of self-hate and low self-esteem in this next part, right? Which is important because it gives insight as to why blacks today take interest in certain programs and why they shy away from certain fields. And so let's go on here to page 216, where it says this. Since the black bourgeoisie cannot escape identification with Negroes, they experience certain feelings of insecurity because of their feeling of inferiority. Their feeling of inferiority is revealed in their fear of competition with whites. There is first a fear of competition with whites for jobs. Notwithstanding the fact that middle-class Negroes are the most vociferous in demanding the right to compete on equal terms with whites, many of them still fear such competition. They prefer the security afforded by their monopoly of certain occupations within the segregated Negro community. For example, middle-class Negroes demand that 2 Negro medical schools be reserved for Negro students and that a quota be set for white students, though Negro students are admitted to white medical schools. What they're really saying is that.
So I wanted to make a comment about, we have blacks venturing out to white jobs, and I'm calling them white jobs because that's the only way they were seen at the time, right? They're really just jobs. but obviously they weren't accessible to blacks. So as soon as they are accessible for blacks, they up until that point they've always been known as white jobs. So you can imagine, again, like I was mentioning earlier, how a black individual ventures out into jobs that he has only known as a white man's job. He instantly puts himself against the odds of succeeding, right? Because he sees himself as inferior. He sees himself as that Jim Crow characterization. And so going down in those quotes, he goes to say about how they would stay in the security of working within black communities. So we have the black individuals who are venturing out, not really venturing out. Well, they're venturing out, but not venturing out the black community. So they're only providing for their own black community because the fear of competing against with white jobs, which I think is a very interesting thing to think about.
Yeah, and I'm being really meticulous here. You said when the black man goes into a profession, he's immediately putting himself at odds with success. And I just think that, not saying that you believe this or whatnot, but just even that terminology. It's by being in a situation where people like myself aren't populated in, I'm somehow decreasing my chances of success. Sure, there might not be a lot of people within my community that are in this job, but if I have the resume and the experience and the knowledge to back it, why do I have to intuitively think that I'm somehow at a decreased disadvantage, at an increased disadvantage because I'm black? The mentality should be that, hey, I have the experience, I have the pedigree to come in here and handle some business. So I think that was just an interesting little thing, and I think it's that subtle. Despite these careers might not being as diverse with regards to the people and the places that we come from, if we have the experience and the pedigree to do these things well, the idea of us being at a disadvantage to achieve those things shouldn't be there at all. And I think that's a problem he's kind of pointing at within the black community, that is that we automatically place ourselves in this place of inferiority when it comes to these professions. And I think we just see that permeate throughout these different occupations and society.
I would say, and I'm not one to always blame slavery. I think that is overplayed nowadays. I definitely think that this issue is a more prominent issue nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
I will give the benefit of the doubt to the people in the 50s, however, knowing their position in society, that they could feel that type of way, that inferiority complex, right? You're basically one generation, or you might have some uncles or aunts that were part of slavery or were crop sharers, and not the positive crop sharers. There are positive examples of crop sharing, but really getting out the mud, right? So I could see, and even during the Jim Crow era, right? So I could see, and that's the 50s, right? So I could see where they could have that feeling. But for a lot of the middle class up in the northern cities, they found themselves in the same position as middle class white people, and I think that oh, I'm not supposed to be here.
Mm-hmm.
And we kind of get that feeling to some extent, but I want to say that nowadays there should be less and less of that feeling. There's so many examples, like we said, right? We got to watch and look at the messaging of who our heroes are. There's so many people who have overcome this aspect, this inferiority complex, especially just in our community, and have gone on to be powerful people, right? People, they're going to call them a coon, right? But back in the day, Max scholars used to love Ben Carson. You look at his story, man. He had a major inferiority complex, and then he becomes, he's gifted hands, right? Like he separates conjoined twins, right? Ends up being like doing a medical, miracle, right? So it can be done, and I get it more in this time period only because you're a few generations away from slavery.
And just like to go on top of that, I think like it's also important for us to know as a race that this inferiority complex is not something that it's innate. We weren't born with it. This was something that another group, another race, like forced upon us, and we're still going to deal with the ramifications of that for quite some time. But if we can learn to like acknowledge that this, like I said, inferiority complex, for lack of a better term, it's made up. And that's not to say that people didn't go out of their way and do a great amount of atrocities to like implement it. But at the end of the day, it was made up by them to keep us, refrained and keep us like marginalized. But it's not real. And
they keep us controlled.
If we can learn to like dissociate this inferiority complex with like who we are, like as people, I think that's like a big step in the right direction. And like I said, it's going to be harder said than done, just because there are, complete systems within society that have been, constructed on this premise. But we can understand that this is not something we were like born with. It's just because,
And real quick, I'm pretty sure, all three of us have been told from family, friends, like other authority figures, and just a bunch of people, like, things are going to be harder because of your skin color. Like, you're not going to have all these opportunities. You're going to have to work twice as hard, this, that, the other. So, all these generations being forced to just feel that way. Whatever community I step into, I'm going to be looked at differently. I'm going to be stereotyped. I'm going to be underestimated. You can go on, Xavier.
Yeah.
I was going to say, think about, right? So for sure it's made up things, but then it invokes emotional reactions that turn into real consequences. So when you have an inferiority complex, you yourself, then you have kids. What does that do to your kids? And then the damage that those kids have, what's happening now, right? Let's see what happened in these generations. So these are some of the same things, right? The things that he puts on, that he highlights in this video, right? Status, sports, self-hate, and submissive men. These are the traits that were the strongest and that have gone down for generations in our specific community, right? So I totally agree. Inferiority complex is something that somebody else put on us, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of men, even during the civil rights era, right, were able to discern that, and they knew, they knew how to operate in it, right? They knew how to. Black families were the best, right, during Jim Crow. That's sad to say, right? Government came in the way of that, but just that ramification, right? The more emotional you are, the more viable you are to react to this inferiority complex, and it can tear down a community. Because if we think about it, the submissive men, right? If the women are the leaders in the household and they have an inferiority complex, or they have an issue with the father of their kids, right? I've seen some wicked things, right? I don't want to go too far on that, but we probably all have examples of that, right? It doesn't help the next generation. It actually builds up bigger issues that in 2059 or 2060 or 2070, they'll say, oh, this was what was going on in 2020 with the Black community, right? They were so brain rot that they were okay with Quavo and Meg Thee Stallion twerking to win for real, to win office.
Yeah.
That's fraud. So that was a whole tangent, but I agree. And I just want you to think about that ramification, right? Like, for sure, that's fake, and it's an operation of control. But that emotion, it turns it into reality.
No, yeah, and I want to kind of like add on top of that too, just like from like a logical standpoint, as much as we can say, well, the things that happened during that time period are, bad, and all those things are valid, but would you rather have a mentality that induces you to take action, or a mentality that just leaves you subject to the discretion of other people? Because no one's going to look after you at the end of the day, as much as you, if you want to embody like the sentiment, like, well, this, that, and the third. All right, you can be there, but like, where does that leave you to be better? Because then now you're just subject to the world and your enemies to somehow miraculously turn their thinking around and be like, you know what, we're gonna start doing better. Or if you can switch that and kind of paint it in a light in which you can take responsibility and like take action on, that's going to be a lot more empowering than the alternative.
Totally agree. Totally agree. And I mean, just think about that, man. What I said earlier with the senator from 1870. If we had that empowered, and all the businesses that were so successful, right? All the Black businesses, if we were able to maintain that throughout, and we had that pride, and we had that, you know, in general, I got to say, African Americans, we were more emotional than most populations. If we were able to see that, it wasn't promoted, but if we were able to see that, I feel like that could bring more self-esteem. If they could see that someone else was able to achieve and get up to high levels. I'm not saying a senator is like the craziest thing in the world, but
Yeah.
you had Black millionaires. You had, you know what I'm saying? You had close to billionaires, right? We had our own type of Rockefellers, but they were their own anomaly, and they did their own thing, right? You got Booker T. Washington, right? He's someone that's always mentioned, but to think about how creative he was, he's like on Einstein level, right? So there's so many, but even nowadays, and we, especially with media, we have so many examples that shows you're not inferior. You can do whatever you want to do in whatever position you want to do it. You're just going to have to put the work into it,
Yeah.
like point blank, period.
Oh, yeah.
So it definitely kills that, out of the bird, or, it gets that out of the way. It kills that's such an easy crutch to lie on.
No,
Such
yeah.
an easy crutch to lie on. And it breeds failure, not success.
No.
That they don't believe that they can compete intellectually with these other groups, right? They may give all sorts of other reasons, but the underlying belief is that they don't believe that they can compete in these areas. Right? You got to understand this, because you won't find a quota system in professions like basketball or football, right? Because they're confident that they can compete in that area. But when it comes to these intellectual matters and thinking, right, they don't think that they can compete in there because that's what they have come to believe about themselves, right? But you have to understand this, that the truth is that anyone can be competitive in any profession or any intellectual subject if they have a dominant desire to do so. But the Blacks, they're never going to be able to be.
That is huge right there. That's something for me that I've noticed with students and Max Scholar, just in coaching, just observing, right, the youth. Man, when they are confident in what they can do, they kill it. And it's leaps and bounds. It's amazing the progress that is done. But when they don't have the attitude, or they don't have that thought that they can do it, right, it's sad. And then you end up being a cheerleader. You don't want to be the cheerleader, but you're trying to boost the spirits up. But when you're confident in what you can do, man, everyone always says LeBron is a basketball savant, an IQ. His IQ is amazing, and then his business side is just as amazing as well. That's IQ, right? So we gotta be confident in other areas, right? It's so all the time is always sports. We gotta be confident in those other areas. Yeah.
No, and I think a good point on top of that is that confidence is so important, because you can have all the talent in the world, but if you don't have the courage to make a name for yourself or put yourself in like these situations where you can exceed, then all that talent that you have is arbitrary and will be wasted. So I think that just kind of goes to show how important it is to embody that confidence and have faith in yourself, Because the adverse of that is no matter how talented you are, you're not going to get the recognition or, what have you for that talent. It needs to be, backed by something.
Yeah, and I remember, in high school, it was just a normal thing of like how the races would be segregated between class levels. Like everyone would call the CP classes, the most bottom classes, colored people classes. And it's just kind of interesting to see, what happens when you make that happens to be the norm, right? No one tries to change it. No one tries to, excel if they feel as if they can. They just feel comfortable in their spot because they feel like that's where they're supposed to be. When I tutored in college, and this is through Black and white people. This isn't really focusing just on Black people, but and this is the same thing with coaching. But when I was tutoring, and I had the people who had difficulties with math, once I walked it through with them and built their confidence on it, like I'm telling you, I don't even want to say 90%, like 100% of students who really just sat down, took a breath, stopped focusing on all their anxieties and insecurities about, oh, I can't do this, I can't do that. They're able to at least follow the progress of some problem. And that's the same thing with throwing, like you with sports, like you said, as long as the athlete or student is attempting to get their intended goals, they're going to get somewhere. I'm not going to just say like every single person's going to try and then succeed, but make an effort, you get results. What those results are, you'll find out, but you will.
100%.
Mm-hmm.
Be competitive in those areas if they continue to spend vast amounts of time indulging in sports and entertainment. It's just not going to work. It does not work that way, right? You cannot compete against people in intellectual professions who do the opposite, right? And they spend the vast majority of their time on these intellectual matters and minimal time on sports and entertainment, right? These are just the basics that we're talking about, right? These are the basics. Now let's continue. Since the Supreme Court of the United States has ruled against segregated public schools, many Negro teachers, even those who are well prepared, fear that they cannot compete with whites for teaching positions. Although this fear stems principally from a feeling of inferiority, which is experienced generally by Negroes, it has other causes. The majority of the black bourgeoisie fear competition with whites, partly because such competition would mean that whites were taking them seriously, and consequently, they would have to assume a more serious and responsible attitude towards their work. And competition would mean that they would have to give up many of the low-value activities like sports and shooting the breeze on insignificant topics, right? And they would have to replace those with higher value activities like reading, studying more challenging subjects, right? Thinking and analyzing, basically breaking free of the inherited Negro consciousness. Let's continue. Middle-class Negroes who are notorious for their inefficiencies in management of various Negro institutions excuse their inefficiency on the grounds that Negroes are a young race and therefore will require time to attain the efficiency of the white man. The writer has heard a Negro college president who has constantly demanded that Negroes have equality in American life declare before white people in extenuation of the shortcomings of his own administration that Negroes were a child race and that they had to crawl before they could walk. And so they were saying that in the 1950s, which I could understand to some degree, but it looks like Dr. E. Franklin Frazier is not buying that excuse even at that time, right? But it's crazy to hear that people still today say this same thing, right? Going round and round on the hamster wheel and going a whole lot of nowhere. Let's continue. Such declarations, while flattering to the whites, are revealing in that they may manifest the black bourgeoisie's contempt for the Negro masses, while excusing its own deficiencies by attributing them to the latter. Yet it is clear that the black worker who must gain a living in a white man's mill or factory and in competition with white workers cannot offer any such excuse for his inefficiency. And most people don't care about the excuse either. They need you to do a job. Let's continue. The fear of competition with whites is probably responsible for the black bourgeois fear of competence and first-rate performance within its own ranks. When a Negro is competent and insists upon first-rate work, it appears to this class that he is trying to be a white man, or that he is insisting that Negroes measure up to white standards. You see that? That's the black consciousness that has to be separated from, because it's a consciousness that's meant to hold people down into the pit. Because the ones who have this mindset, they have zero intention to improve.
As someone who, I guess, like had trouble with like their identity, like growing up, you know, I'm a pretty fair skinned dude, but my parents are black. Hung around like a different, you know, variety of people race wise. You know, was into white sports, like play lacrosse, like soccer and like whatnot. I like really resonated with that because there is like this, like, even if it's not explicitly said, like this kind of like, what word am I like trying to think? Like in the background, kind of like condemnation on you for like being like a part of these programs. And I know I was something that I struggled with like a lot growing up, being in like this place where, you know, maybe it was like a little bit more like on the intellectual side than like some of like my counterparts and like whatnot. But there was just like a disconnect with that from like my fellow like black peers, and like being that it's, I don't know, not what they're thinking or like whatnot, you kind of get like, I won't say ostracized because like that's a little excessive, but like you like get the point where you're just like, all right, well, you know, he's white, so like, you know, it's whatever. Like it's crazy how quick people of our race will dismiss you for not embodying the ideologies and like sentiments that like keep us down. And it's so disheartening because you think you're doing well. You know, I have a lot of drug related problems on like my dad's side and even like a little bit on my mom's side. So like a big thing for me mentally growing up was like, I don't want to be like that. So I'm like, I'm not going to drink, not going to smoke, like blah, 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 you know, focus on this. You know, obviously peer pressure played into, you know, some of that, and later down the line got into like some stuff, but just like the societal pressure from like peers to like, you know, conform to like, hey, well, that's what white people do. Like, I don't know what you're doing. Like, you know, I kind of come back over here. It's like one thing I think we really need to get better at as like a race. Cause like he said, the more we embody like this kind of sentiment of, well, you know, that's like kind of like their thing, not us, the more it's going to kind of keep us down on the bottom level here.
I was going to say, man, it's kind of crazy too, but like, so you're talking about the white expectation. That's the bare minimum, right? Like an expectation is a bare minimum. So if you think that if you're meeting white expectations, that's the normal, like that is the normal, just like you're just doing all right, right? Like
to have like a good life, like do these things, but somehow that's looked at in a bad light. And I think as a race, we really got to be better on that. And like,
yeah, it's like okay, it's like in a grading ceremony. You're like, ha, you got a C. We all got D's, and you black. You supposed to have D's like us.
Yeah, and it's like, what?
And we only got a C. You know what I'm saying?
And then even like on a broader sense there, I think we can kind of tie it back into what we were kind of like talking about before, just in terms of like the people we idolize. You know, a lot of prominence and status is placed upon people who are, you know, professional athletes or, you know, who are rappers or like, you know, entertainers, you know, things of like that nature. That's, you know, who we idolize. And if you deviate from that, you're somehow painted in a bad light, or somehow your blackness is now taken away from you because you're not a part of the status quo, which is, you know, really shocking when you take a step back and look at it.
Yeah. And looking at the big picture of like how different people treat you or expect you to be acting because of your race is something that like always just baffled me growing up, because I was, you know, growing up, it was always like for my white friends, like you're the whitest black person I ever met.
Yeah, dude.
You know, like I would think it's like, what does that mean? You know, it's like because I'm well spoken, because I'm taking these classes, higher level classes, because I don't play basketball. Because you look shocked, X.
No.
X, you shocked? But yeah,
I'm straight trolling. Don't
Yeah,
don't
I was
mind
say,
me.
yeah, it's all, yeah.
But yeah, like, and it's like, what are you expecting from me? Am I wrong? You know, it's like, am I doing, like, how are you telling me how to live my life
And I
just
think,
off of my race?
no, yeah, and I think that just kind of paints a bigger picture. We were talking about earlier how the establishment, the white agenda, or what have you, has like these implicit tactics to kind of keep us conformed to our degree. This is one of them. The second we try to deviate from what it is that keeps us confined to our status, somehow we're not black anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Also, I just be getting questions.
I was gonna. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say that. I've always seen it in Max Scholars, man, talking to the younger kids. I mean, nowadays the kids that I used to talk to, they're, through college probably right now. But just having words with them and seeing where their mentality was at, was always interesting. And to see that, 90% of the kids every year raise their hand to try to be an athlete, that they wanted to be a basketball player or a football player, and then only a few. And those are the guys that ended up being in Max Scholars, always said something unique or something different. So we got to break. I can't even go back to that idea of we have to see examples. There's too many examples to count from nowadays.
Yeah.
In every single thing. I remember back in the day, I used to have conversation with Jamal. Jamal wanted to be the first black NHL player on, right? NHL, right?
NHL.
It already happened. It happened before he was even in high school, right? Or when he was in high school.
Yeah,
it is too much, right? There are too much examples for the black community for us to just feel so inferior and just, to feel so inferior.
It is looked at with hatred and with envy because it's looked at as a challenge to how those people believe that someone who they think of as black should act, right? It's that self-defeating black consciousness that's there, right? And it's the consciousness that some of you have to escape from. Let's continue. Among the women of the black bourgeoisie, there is an intense fear of the competition of white women for Negro men. It's about to get spicy right now. Let's continue. They often attempt to rationalize their fear by saying that the Negro man always occupies an inferior position in relation to the white woman, or that he marries much below his social status. They come nearer to the source of their fear when they confess that there are not many eligible Negro men and that these few should marry Negro women. That such rationalizations conceal deep-seated feelings of insecurity is revealed by the fact that generally they have no objection to the marriage of white men to Negro women, especially if the white man is reputed to be wealthy. In fact, they take pride in the fact and attribute those marriages to the peculiar charm of Negro women. You see that? Now, do they still have those same inner thoughts today? You tell me. Let's continue. In fact, the middle-class Negro woman's fear of the competition of white women is based off...
Get your bag, sis, okay?
Shit.
No. Man. Very interesting there, man. That's always been a dynamic, even in the 50s. Who would have known? I wouldn't have known that, to be honest. But, I've always gotten bad looks. I'm not going to lie. College, it was always bad, man. In my school, in my classes, man. Dated someone in my major and had a lot of black women in my class. Some were very supportive. Some very much so gave me some of the nastiest eyes I've ever seen in my whole entire life. It had looked like I had joined the Ku Klux Klan.
No, literally.
And no, I'm being so serious.
No, I believe you.
And we got crap from my mom because you don't like black women. I love all women. You just got to be my type. That's all. I'm sorry. I do have a type. I don't got no type, but I got a type. But Cory, I really want to hear your
Oh man.
Hey, well, what's your type, X?
That is the only thing that I like. Hey, that's how you know I'm old.
Yeah, it is.
Because it's seen as you're catering to the white man. You want to please the white man, so you got to please the white woman, right? That's what it's seen from the outside, or how like Dr. Umar is gonna put it. But it's like it all depends on if you're doing it for class. You're either doing it for class.
I would say this more than anything, just like about the topic. I don't know if it's like relevant, but I feel like why some black men gravitate towards white men is just like a submissiveness aspect. I love my black
Can you
women.
repeat that? You said white men.
I said I feel like some of the reasons why black men, find themselves more with like white men is like submissiveness.
White women.
Yeah, sorry. With white women, it's like a submissiveness aspect. I love my black queens out there, and maybe this is a result of just like generational trauma through what we've been through like as a race. That there's this need to be like a little bit more like masculine in the sense that you got to be like a little bit more stern. You got to fight for what you want, and that has served us a lot of good in terms of reaching the goals with regards to like the civil rights movement and things of like that nature. But from a family setting, that same masculineness does not warrant the amount of success that we've experienced. And I feel like a lot of black women kind of intertwine the two, and I think that's where like some disconnect like comes from. And I think, and like I'm just generalizing, if black women can kind of embody that submissiveness like a little bit more, it doesn't mean you gotta like be walked over, what have you, but at the end of the day, a man doesn't want two budding personalities, or like a relationship, like for that matter, not even just like a man's perspective. And two sides of that coin is someone embodying like the masculine, someone like submissiveness, and sure, like the degrees in which those take place within a relationship might change, but generally, women are going to be like the more submissive creatures, and then men the more masculine ones, just by nature. And the lack of that understanding within like a family dynamic, I think, is what kind of contributes to this. And I think the reason why black women get maybe so defensive about it is because then they have to acknowledge that there is like a flawed sense of thinking and just like kind of how like they operate.
That's a perfect segue that I want to jump to that aspect of the submissive men, and then we can go to our closing statements, because I do have D, I'll let you go first in your closing statements. We'll definitely be mindful of time here, but let's go to the submissive men, Cory, and then we can go give our closing thoughts, and then where you like to see this conversation go for the next conversation. So very thankful for you guys to be here. Cory, let's get there. And it's not getting cut.
Well, what did you say?
And it's not. Most of this is not getting cut. We're keeping it as genuine as possible.
Yeah, we'll talk about it. Well, one thing I want to say is over that whole
ain't no talking.
What?
I said this part will get cut out, but ain't no talking.
Either way, marry who you want. As long as it's healthy. But submissive men, I feel like, and I don't have too much to comment on. It's just real plain and simple. I feel like in a healthy household,
Cory, I was just saying, like, show that aspect of the video. That's what I was saying.
And then we'll get into those thoughts.
Mm-hmm. Where is that? That's like near the end, isn't it?
Yeah. Uh-huh. And we can edit this aspect off.
Are you driven by purpose? Do you have expertise to share?
And recognition. This keen competition is the result of frustrations which they experience in attending with automobiles when they go to college. End up in this type of relationship because ultimately it's up to Frazier left behind. Describe. Want to hear this part? Here we go. In the South.
Okay, should we back it up a little bit? What you think? Back it up a little bit. I'm gonna back up a little bit.
Yeah.
Like 5 seconds, 5 seconds, 5 to 10.
Yeah,
seconds.
yeah. After this, yeah, we'll just let this play out.
Which is crazy, right? But to maintain their show of wealth, some of them had to operate illegally within the black market because in the 1950s, abortion was still very illegal. So this is the report that Dr. Frazier left behind describing that time, which sounds absolutely crazy to hear about doctors. Let's shift gears, and Dr. Frazier is going to provide us with some insight on the 1950s black family structure, right? And you're definitely going to want to hear this part. Here we go. In the South, the middle-class Negro male is not only prevented from playing a masculine role, but generally he must let Negro women assume leadership in any show of militancy. This reacts upon his status in the home, where the tradition of female dominance, which is widely established among Negroes, has tended to assign a subordinate role to the male. And this is another part of black consciousness. It includes women running the house and the men being submissive to the women, right? As the standard, right? Like he said, well established within the Negro community. And I feel bad for both the masculine woman and the feminine men who find themselves in this type of relationship because they both live a very frustrated life, both of them. And later on in other videos, we can do some lessons for the men to make sure that you never end up in this type of relationship, because ultimately it's up to you, right? It's up to you to develop yourself in such a way that allows a woman to feel comfortable expressing her feminine nature with you. But it starts with the man. And yes, there are a whole bunch of masculine women in America, right? But there's also a whole bunch of feminine men who balance out the equation. And a feminine man is someone who's always complaining, arguing, has no emotional control, easily agitated and angered, right? Has minimal ambitions and goals, no purpose, right? No self-improvement, always blaming, and always waiting for someone to come and do something for them. And a woman is never going to respect someone that's like this, right? And so being masculine is one of the ways that she expresses that frustration with the man. But this could all change, right? I promise you, this could all change. But those other things, they have to be worked on first. But let's continue reading. In fact,
Just play this quote right here.
in middle-class families, especially if the husband has risen in social status through his own effort and married a member of an old family or a society woman, the husband is likely to play a pitiful role. The greatest compliment that can be paid such a husband is that he worships the wife, which means that he is her slave and supports all her extravagances and vanities, which is absolutely ridiculous if you ask me. Let's continue. But what exclusion is he talking about?
Oh well.
It's fine. Okay, we can cut the shared video. So very interesting there. I think that is a generational curse, right? In my opinion, I think that we look at. I think it's so hilarious that today, when Trump was with the black journalist in Chicago, he said that he was one of the best, and you could debate it whether you can stay in the comments here. I know how much rage he invokes, but he said that he did the most in modern day history for the black community. And one of the reporters, the reporter that he was directly going against was, she was, I think she may have been a reporter for ABC. She might be from some other outlet. You can see it in the video. She says, well, what about LBJ and his Voting Rights Act and his Civil Rights Act? He was one of the most racist people known to man. And why am I bringing this up? It's because when he involved the government with the family, with the black family, it totally gave, if that was already happening in the 1950s, right, when families were together, that men were more submissive, even if they have created such wealth and they've created status within their name, if they married a girl that was well made and like was a made man, he had to play the pet, right, to this woman essentially in some regard. So to see that was happening prior to the government's involvement into the black family that LBJ brought in, right? Now you get as much money as possible if you're a single parent, and if you have, multiple kids, you get benefits, and there's nothing wrong with it, but it's an incentive, right, for single parents, right? For single parents. And this affects our community the most. And then this role of a submissive man is even amped up from that 50s level because there's no man in the house. Maybe there's some men example, but they might just be uncles that come in, right? Not trying to be so vulgar, but you know what I'm saying? They're not strong, no strong male leaders. So what do the men in our society go to? We have some feminine nature, right? We have some emotional. They put some of these things down, like it trickles down because, a lot of times we used to have conversations with some of my friends, right? We say, yeah, man, I see a lot of that, why am I always so, I'm debative in nature. I'm going to be loud in nature. That's me. But the emotional, all this rage and blah, 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 it's so feminine, right? And it's been one of the biggest fights, right, to counter that, because you want to have masculine, but you want to have your point across as well, right? So, but when you learn these more masculine tendencies, sometimes the point doesn't matter. It's about just keeping even kill. So these are, I think it definitely shows in my family. And I can't speak on you guys' family, but it definitely shows in my family, and it's a cycle that we got to break. And like you said earlier, Davon, I hope that Black women see this, because when order is brought back into the unity between man and woman, it doesn't matter what race or creed or whatever, but the original unity, and not this new wave of feminism that they're the men and they own men now. And I saw this video a few days ago on The View. These women on The View, and you know where they stand politically. You could just watch it. But they were talking about men are useless in our society nowadays. I don't need men in my life. And then one lady said, well, maybe my husband and gay men, but every man, right? Like, this war on men started in the Black community, and now it's seen its way mainstream just 40, 50 years later. So it's interesting to see how, this turns out. And I know I might be rambling, but this is a pretty big issue in my opinion. And I think that men need to learn how to be men again.
No, yeah. I couldn't agree more with that. And just kind of to reiterate some sentiments there, as much as there is a responsibility on women to just kind of be a little bit more self-aware with regards to like their nature, for like the women who find themselves like more masculine or having like trouble finding, like a steady relationship or something like that, taking a look at that and just kind of seeing where that takes you. I think there also needs to be a responsibility on the man with all these outside forces going on within our culture and society. It can be very easy to kind of fall into this feminine role, but as a man, you got to stay strong through that all, and despite all these other extraneous things coming at you, not being afraid to embody what that means to be a man, which, is a leader, someone who has values, who, stands on this values, is a protector, all these things that we come to associate with being a man. It's okay to have that. And, you're going to get some discourse within society that's going to try to paint that in a bad light, but having enough discipline and, courage to stand strong despite those efforts is something that we got to take responsibility for as well.
Yeah, I agree. And I see this most with just seeing every generation younger than us, and well, me. And I feel like every year, I joke that we get a little zestier, we get a little just less discipline, less control of our emotions, this, that, the other. Boys are just allowed to just do nothing and pout and this, that, the other. And I just feel like that's something that we should be proud of, is being able to be disciplined and being able to pursue our actions through hardships and staying put together. It's very valuable, and that this goes on both sides. When we get comments like all men are bad, all women are bad, or this society would be better off without women/men. It's like, you're lying to yourself. Amazing things happen when we work together, and it's just kind of ludicrous to think that we can get anywhere without each other. And we're equal, but we give different contributions to the table. There's some things that I can't do as a man that a woman can do, and vice versa. And I think we just got to be able to see our differences, communicate our differences, and be again okay with the fact that we carry these values. That's my point.
No.
Yeah, I think I would love for you guys at some point to take a look at, Trump going to the National Black Journalism press thing today, because you have 3 dominant women and their own different style with their own political views. You can definitely tell, but it was kind of like they hadn't been in a situation. Well, some of them hadn't been in a situation where a real man was in stage, right, and legitimately check them. You know what I'm saying? I think a lot of times we do add this tremendous respect, but then that respect is so there for Black women in our society that we fail to keep it real with them at times. And the same could be said on the other way around as well. I think that, men, just as men, all men in general, I think we're more, a lot of us try to be more aware of the areas of improvement in our life, and we can kind of be clear with ourselves. Women can live in delusion for time, and it's not because of the way they're thinking. It's the environment that they set up. I notice it just as a coach. It could be really small issues can turn into huge issues because of so many different avenues that just makes it so rocky. And this is nothing to hate on women or anything like this. Just an observation I see, right? So we got to be better at coming together and being more understanding. I can draw to my family. We know my mom's tripping. Let my mom trip, and then we'll come back together and we'll talk, and then we'll, she'll have the conversation, or, she might walk away, but she'll come back and we can come to a solution. So you always got to be mindful of it. But I do think that to some extent we put so much respect that we fail to keep it real. And I think part of it is to be loving and to be kind and be graceful. But I think that this video right here, and the reason why we're reacting to it, is it's a soft way of saying, look, all of us in the Black community, these are the areas of improvement that we're looking at. How can we get better? If this man saw these observations from 1950, we're in 2020s, a lot of these things remain the same, right? We got to sharpen it up then. And we can't blame anybody but ourselves.
Yeah. And I want to add a little caveat to that as well. Men, it can be easy to kind of, what's the word, antagonize women for not being so easily able to acknowledge kind of some of the areas they need to improve on. So just understanding that like a lot of these people might even be unconscious to like the way in which like they're operating. So it's going to take some time to kind of unravel that. And, the same can be said on our end there. And I think Xavier, you hit it pretty well there that, this is going to be a cumulative process, and there needs to be some empathy and, understanding and respect that goes along this path as we try to get to this homeostasis that we've clearly been off of for so much time here.
Well, thank you for watching, everybody. Please make sure you like, share, and subscribe. Share this to a friend. Share this to family. Let's have a real conversation about this. If you have any questions, feel free to DM us at What's Out Media. You can hit us up on email at louderandprouder1@gmail.com. And, you can hit us up on TikTok, on anything. Cory, myself, Davon is not all the way out there. So, he might be on his own pilgrimage. You can reach us if you would like to reach him. Okay.
And then let me know. And then they'll let me know.
And we'll come all together. But no, Diddy, pause. I got to edit that part out. That was crazy as fuck. All right. Hey, much love to y'all.
Always a pleasure. What's out?
Wonderful, man.
Fam.
Peace out, y'all.
Till the next time.
Yeah.